This is so funny that the sun is almost directly outside my window, so I can barely even see the camera, which means you should hopefully see me very well. So, hey there guys, I finally got my nice little spoke wrench, which means I'm ready to get this wheel off the bike and hopefully get it fixed. So let's go through how to properly tension and true a rim. Maybe you've done it before, maybe you haven't. Me, I don't know if I've shared this with you guys or not, but I actually grew up working in bike shops. So from the ages of 14, I think I started, all the way up until I was in my early 20s, I worked in bike shops off and on, mostly on, and it's just something that I really enjoyed. And I was very fortunate that as a young kid, 14, 15 years old, I was taught how to build wheels. And it's not the easiest thing to do. I was taught how to use the calculator and figure out what size spokes you need for what hub and blah, blah, blah. And we're not going to talk about that today, but we're going to talk about what the process of going through a rim is like in terms of your spoke tension, in terms of truing the rim, and what's the proper way to go about it. So let's get started. The first thing to do is get the wheel off, and I'm going to get the tire off. Now you can true rims with the tire on. I think it's better to do it with the tire off. It's a little bit easier to see, and you won't get confused between a wobble in the tire. If the bead of the tire is not sitting in the rim evenly, you can get a wobble from that versus a wobble in the actual rim. So it's much better to do this without the tire on. And if you're building a wheel, of course you can't have the tire on. Someone had asked me about putting pegs on my bike, and that's something I've thought about and I'd really like to do. It's just that the wheels are held on with these little 5mm bolts. The bolt itself is probably, that's probably about 5mm too. Anyway, this bolt I don't think will hold up to the punishment of securing a peg onto the bike. I don't know if you guys have run pegs before. If you've never run pegs on bikes, I don't know about the modern pegs. I've never used these newer pegs. I'm talking about the old pegs where they would thread onto the axles. And those things always bent your axles. Always. And I'm guessing that the new ones do too, because it's essentially a lever acting on this little bolt. And all my body weight, I'm about 200 pounds. Hey, I have lost 12 pounds thanks to you guys encouraging me to ride my bike more. I've lost 12 pounds, working really hard on my diet and exercise. So thanks guys. And anyway, still 200 pounds. I don't think this little bolt's gonna hold up. It's important when you're taking the tire off your rim to use the right tools. The best tool is of course a tire lever. After that, it's your hands, if you can. You need to be careful not to use anything sharp or pointy. When I was a kid, like 8, 9 years old, me and my next door neighbor, we would always use screwdrivers to get our tires off because that was the only way we could do it. And inevitably we would pinch the tube with the screwdriver and poke another hole in it. So we put more holes in the tubes than we would fix. It was pretty bad. Oh, I can hear that spoke nipple rattling around in there. So that's good, I didn't lose it. Then we have to go out and buy new spoke nipples. Alright, now we've got the rim strip. Alright, question is, can we find that little spoke nipple and get it back out? Yep, there it is. Boom. Uh-oh. That's not good. There's more than one spoke nipple floating around in here. Yep, there surely was. Oh, I am actually missing two, so yeah, that makes sense. So when you're working on your wheels, it's really important that you've got even spoke tension, because if you mess up the spoke tension, in other words, if one side of the wheel has more tension than the other, it's going to pull the wheel to that side. And if you've got too much tension in one area, it's going to put a hop in it. And when you're working on wheels, you've got two problems. You've got hop, where the rim is up and down. That's really hard to get out. And then you've got, bend, where you've got a little side-to-side wobble, right? So if you got a side-to-side wobble, you can probably get that out. And if you don't have any experience working on wheels, I suggest if you get a wheel that's got a pretty bad wobble in it, practice on that. Don't practice on new rims, or if you have a friend that can help you out, can help teach you, that's good. But it's really easy to do more harm than good when you're working on wheels when you don't know what you're doing. But you've got to start somewhere. So what I want to do is put these nipples back on, and I just want to put them on with enough force so that I can then balance out all of the nipples on the rim. Oh, I missed. Spokes are very interesting because the way they tighten is from the outside of the rim. The way you look at your spokes is generally from inside the wheel, which means from inside the wheel you're actually going to turn them counterclockwise. You're going to turn them to the left to tighten and turn them to the right or clockwise to loosen them because they're oriented from the outside of the wheel. Now I'm going to run this in just until I can see the spoke going up through the nipple. So what I'm going to try and do is set all the spokes to the same spot. And I'm doing this by eyeball right now, which is not the best way to do it. Usually you'd have a spoke tool or you'd use a screwdriver, and I would just turn until the screwdriver gets pushed off by the spoke coming through. And that way I know that all the spokes are pretty much at the same place in terms of how much tension is on them. When I'm looking through the wheel, I can see where the spokes are, and I'm going to try and line them up to the same depth. This Trials front rim is a kind of an oddball. Oh, and speaking of that, it's easier to do front rims than do rear rims because front rims are generally centered on the hub, whereas a rear rim is offset depending on the size of your sprocket. They're usually offset to compensate for that. So like a BMX wheel doesn't have much of an offset, whereas a mountain bike or road bike wheel with a big 7/8 speed cog on the back is going to have a pretty big offset to compensate, to keep the wheel in the center even with the cassette. You see what I'm saying? But this wheel, it's radial spoked on one side, so if you look here, these spokes do not cross. That's a radial spoke. And then it's crossed on the other side. I think this is a cross 3. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, cross 3. So it's just not something you would normally see on a BMX bike, that's for sure. First time I ever saw it was when I started riding trials bikes. And I was like, wow, that is weird. So these rims have a nice big pocket before you actually get to the spoke, which is not something I'm used to. And having a hard time finding the hole. Insert joke. Wasn't so bad on the first one. I got all the spokes at pretty much the same tension, which is 0, and the rim does have a little bit of a wobble to it, but it's not too bad. And the great thing for me is that this bike is disc brake, and of course disc brake, that's why it is cross 3 on this side, is to have more power where the brake is, so that way it doesn't put any adverse effect or extra torque on the wheel. And because it's disc brake, I don't have to worry about the wobbles so much. If the wobble is so bad that I can feel it while I'm riding, that's a problem. But it's not going to affect my braking at all. So now what I want to do is I want to add tension, and I'm going to go about 1/4 of a turn on every spoke all the way through the wheel. And this is the thing about working on rims, is that we do this generally 1/4 or 1/8 of a turn at a time, and that is pretty tedious. But it's important that you don't rush this. In dealing with spokes, 1 turn is actually a lot. Mostly when you're working on your spokes, you should be doing 1/4 turns, 1/8 turns. You don't want to do really big movements on your spokes, because that's an easy way to create a wobble. I love saying that word, wobble, wobble, wobble. When you're tensioning a wheel, it's also important to know where you start. So I always start at the inner tube hole. So that way I have a start and ending spot. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I've got everything where I want. Now you might think, well, this spoke seems loose, I should just add tension to this spoke. And that's true to a certain point, but since I'm trying to keep all the spokes at the same tension, and it's really weird that they're so disparate, but I'm just going to add tension to the whole wheel, and then I'll true it from there. So once everything's equal, then I'll true the rim. Because if I then just kind of arbitrarily add tension, I might end up putting too much tension in one spot, and then trying to true the rim is going to be even harder. And I always, after adding tension, go through and squeeze on the spokes, because sometimes the seating of the spoke nipple will change, and when you squeeze on the spokes like this, it'll get the spoke nipple to seat correctly, and they might pop a little, and that kind of tells you that it's making that adjustment. Yeah, there's still a little bit of a wobble. I'm liking the tension a lot more. I wish I had a tensiometer to tell me how much tension was on here and to know how much tension I should have, but oh well. I'm going to put it back on the bike now and take a look at it on the bike and make the final adjustment there. I sensed some trouble spots. There's a couple of spokes where one spoke was really tight, or not really tight, but one spoke was much tighter than the previous one, and I don't like that. So what I'm about to do is just hold this in one spot near the rim so that I can see what kind of bend there is in the rim. So here's my wobble. Assuming that where I started was center, and it's almost center. I can tell this is my wobble because now it's very far away, and then it comes back and touches. And most of it's touching, I'm assuming that that's the part that's true. And then I've got this big wobble. So I want to take this wobble out. So I'm going to start the spoke before the wobble, and then all the way through the wobble. Alright, and I'm going to add tension to this side, the radial side, to all those spokes. And again, I'm going to add, I think I'm going to add 1/8 of a turn. I don't want to turn it too much. When you're dealing with this side of the wheel, now I'm looking from the inside of the wheel, I want to turn the opposite way. So it's much better to have a real truing stand. Alright, so this is a spot that wasn't still a little, but it's not as bad. It's a real art to doing this, so that's why you've just got to practice, practice, practice. So for me, it's a real gradual wobble. I mean, it's still there, but I don't think it's that bad. Now, the most important thing to me is hop. So let's see if we've got hop in our wheel. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to touch the rim with my tool here and then turn, and I can feel, sorry I'm talking while I'm turning, I can feel how much it pushes against the tool, and I can tell if there's hop. Not much hop. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up and get back on the road. And of course, when you are seating your tire, start with the valve stem. Alright, I'm going to wrap it up here for now, and I want to make a special birthday shout out to my buddy Brandon Ricks. Yo Brandon, what's up? Happy birthday. Thank you so much for all your support. Brandon has been with me from the beginning. He has helped me film, he's given me encouragement, he's given me support, he's given me ideas. He's always there when I need him, and he's a really good friend, a really good buddy, and I just want to say very special happy birthday to you, man. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm sorry I won't be hanging out with you. You know, we're so busy we'll never get to hang out. I am hoping that the new bike will arrive any day now. I'm not certain. I won't know until there's a knock at the door and there's a guy with a bike there. That's pretty much the way it's going to work out. But it should be soon. And of course, I want to thank everybody for watching, and thanks for your comments and your likes. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to tell me what you want to see in these videos, because it means a lot to me. These videos I make for you. And remember, you are awesome. See ya.